So just going to go through a couple of, like I said, what might look a little bit like a head of school coffee. And then again, take questions. If you guys have a question, just type them in that chat room at the bottom. So the 2020 parent survey that many of you filled out for us, right, I guess when we were going to spring break, actually right before spring break. We've been reviewing on the principal level for about 2 weeks. The net promoter score is exactly the same as it was last year, 51. And this is a nationally normed survey, so we can trust the results is what that means. In this particular survey, any score over a 0, anything over a positive number in the field of education is considered a positive score. So we're pleased with the 51. I would like for that number to creep up a little bit. So we'll have some work to do to have that happen. But in general, this year's survey reads much differently than last year's survey. Last year's survey was a little more, in my opinion, the comments were a little more negative, and this year the comments are still that we have work to do, but they like the progress we've made. They know we're pointed in the right direction. So I'm excited about that. And we will work through this as a leadership team probably over the next 3 weeks or so. We have some vacations coming up here, but probably over the next 3 weeks or so. And then we'll report the big items back. I don't know that we'll have that done in time for our annual report. We're currently working on our annual report that's sitting on my desk here somewhere, but so that's coming out also hopefully mid-June. I don't know that we'll have time to have that information in there, but if we do, we will. You probably should have received by now a distance learning survey that was sent out. So if you will take time to fill that out, I would appreciate it. That will give us some information, obviously some feedback into the learning process that just happened over the last 8 weeks. So we're also surveying our students, 5th through 12th grade, and we're also surveying our teachers. So we want more information than less information about that. So certainly, if you have time, please take time to fill that out for us. I do want to just pause a minute. I believe Amanda Baldwin has joined us. I see her, and give a shout out to her. You know, she's going to at some point get tired of hearing this, but distance learning over the last 8 weeks did not happen if Amanda Baldwin did not become a rock star. That's all there is to it. That's right. That's exactly right. She stepped up big when we were well, about March 1st, when we realized there was going to be at least some disruption in the school year. We were beginning to hear reports of that and read reports of that. And Amanda and I had a couple of, I don't know if we met online. I don't know if we met social media or if we met in my office. I don't remember, but she went to work on it immediately. We decided to add 5 days to spring break to onboard our faculty. And we kind of told them where we were headed the Thursday before spring break. And with a lot of white eyes as big as saucers in the room from our faculty, Amanda got them ready. So that's really, that's the story. Our faculty, everybody did well, but it just simply would not have happened without Amanda. So we are grateful, and we will figure out some way to thank her. A big deal for us is our mission statement. It was approved at the board last Thursday night. I'm looking down because I'm reading my notes, so forgive me. Our mission statement was approved at the board last Thursday night. That process started the summer I onboarded. Within about 10 days of me arriving at Concord, Gary Chupik with Intelligent Design, I believe was his name of his organization. I don't know that I even remember. I remember that. I talked to Gary all the time, but I don't remember. He came on and worked a group of faculty, parents, church leadership, school leadership through a process. We came out with a statement out of that document, and we presented that to John Mark when he was hired, and which we should have done because he needs some say-so into that as the senior pastor of First Baptist Concord. He asked us to put that on hold for just a little bit while he reworked First Baptist Concord's mission statement. He obviously wanted us to have like-mindedness in that process and in what the wording might look like. So back in January, I guess it was, he gave me a couple of words. He gave me the word inspiring and the word Jesus and said, go to it. We went through some more work, faculty and leadership, came up with the statement, close to the statement that we have now, put that back in front of the board, put it back in front of church leadership, and it was voted on Thursday night. So I'm very pleased with that statement. We'll go to work now on our vision, and we'll go to work on our values, our operating, our core values. And those will be things that will be that'll be culture builders for us. That's those statements will become how we build our culture, how we do our hiring, how we ask our coaches to think about the athletic field, fine arts. That should be ingrained. Those three things, our mission, vision, and our core values, should be ingrained in everything we do, top to bottom, horizontally and vertically. So excited about that process. That will, and it will not take 18 months. So hear me say that. We'll do that much sooner than that. All right. Another survey will come out at the end of this week. Let me talk about that after that. Let me go back to some of the stuff. We'll talk about it in just a second. Graduation was Saturday. Really, really pleased with that event. If you haven't watched it on social media, I encourage you to take time to do that. It was an outstanding day. If for no other reason than to hear the valedictorian speech. If you don't do anything but fast forward to when Nathan Armour walks on the stage, and then when he walks off the stage, I guarantee you, I promise you, it will be worth your 8 minutes if that's the only thing you watch from that graduation. It is what we do. It's the reason we do what we do. To hear a student challenge us in the middle of a pandemic, to be grateful for the process, and to talk to his graduates and everybody in attendance in really a God-inspired way. So if you haven't, please do. I think you'll be just pleased. And now I will say this, in my 34 years in education and about 25 graduation ceremonies that I actually had part in planning, I've heard 3 or 4, that would compete with Nathan's. It was clearly just one of the best I've ever heard. So take some time to do that. Our 36 seniors, as I said in my head of school letter that went out last week, were accepted into over 50 universities across the entire nation and internationally. A really good list of universities, guys. I know the question comes up occasionally, we're a little concerned about this, or are we preparing kids for the next level? That list alone speaks to that. That group of seniors cannot be accepted into the universities they were accepted into without good faculty. And granted, kids have something to do with it, but our instruction, I think that proves that point to me. Over 3 million, 3.2 million in scholarships offered. One of our graduates, Lakeland Bailey, received one of the top grants, scholarships from the University of Tennessee. Out of there were only 35 of them given to 6,000 something applicants. Those are big deals. So really pleased with this group of seniors. And everybody kind of, this is true, I think, just for West Knoxville in general, and it was certainly true for my time at CAK. Our graduates tended to stay in about a 5-hour radius of Knoxville. This group, for the most part, did the same thing. There's nothing wrong with that. They're going to go where they get the most scholarship money and where they're the most comfortable. But it does speak to the fact that they got into some really, really high-end schools. So, what we want them to be is where God wants them to be. And they pray about with their families and decide that. So excited about this class for sure. task force to talk about. So let's talk about the survey I was mentioning a moment ago. You're going to do another survey. I hope by Friday. We're working it through the channels right now to talk about the fall. So let me say, without any hesitation, we plan to start school on August 13th normally. That is the plan. That can be any number of things could change that, I guess. Probably the summer works in our favor. Preschool and Kids Connect start June 1st. So we'll get a little running start to see what that looks like. But even with the plans to start in the fall on August 13th, it's going to look a little differently. This survey will speak to that. So please encourage your friends and folks who may not be on the call to fill out that survey, because we've asked questions like, what are you comfortable with? Are you comfortable with temperature? Are you, do we need to take temperature 3 times a day? Do you want us to have our teachers and kids wear masks? If, without question, chapel is going to look different. We probably are not going to gather in large groups to start the school year. What's the lunchroom going to look like? Those are all things we're talking about. Are we going to let visitors in the building? Are we gonna catch you at the door with a walkie-talkie, find out what you need? Because here's what we do know: for the foreseeable future, the building's going to have to be cleaned differently than it has been in the past. So we're going to have to think about access to our building, because our janitorial staff will struggle to keep up with just a heightened cleaning. We're looking to hire some people. I don't know what all that'll look like yet, but August 13th, our plan to start school, and with some social distancing practices in place, and things like lunchroom and chapel and PE and big group gatherings all have to be decided. Along with that, there's some questions about how comfortable you may be if a case of COVID showed up in the building. Are you going to still be comfortable sending your child? What our responses to that might be. Do we just shut down that classroom and isolate that classroom? Do we just isolate that part of the building and let the rest of the building take normal activities? These are all things that are being discussed right now. The task force that met last night for the first time is made up of a couple faculty members, key personnel, security, Amanda, folks like that. It's made up of some parents. I think there's 3, 4, maybe 6 parents, 2 from each division. I gave them over 100 pages of best practice information, the best stuff we have right now that's coming all the way from the collegiate level down to just the consultants who are telling us what they think we ought to do. They're going to read through all that information. They're going to take your survey information, and they're going to formulate some plans for us. We're all hoping and praying that there's not a spike, but we have to be prepared for a spike. And Knoxville's been fortunate. You all know this. Compared to the rest of the country, we virtually have no cases. I mean, I think yesterday there were 49 active cases and only 3 people in the hospital. So we're way above the curve. But who knows what that's going to look like when we open this thing back up full time. Question here about tuition going forward. So I don't want y'all to think we don't have a clear plan. Our plan is to be in school August 13th as normal. If we have to deviate from that plan like we did this year, there would be, and we're working on this, the board will get this stuff hopefully mid-June. There will be plans for obviously a tuition reduction, right? We would not expect you guys to pay full tuition early in the year if we had a ongoing period of time like we just had 8 weeks. So that is part of the plan. Okay. So let me speak to that. And this is really hard to write in a letter, but when we went out on the break, we were about 9/12 through our budget year. And the only things that were not really spent at that time, the majority of our budget spent well before Christmas. So the only thing after Christmas is really benefits, salaries, benefits, and some PD money and just trip money that's in and out. That's not budget money. So when we went on break, I had some questions like, well, hey, why don't we get a little facilities refund? Or why don't we get a little of this? And the answer is that money's spent. I mean, I could probably give everybody back, I guess if we did the math, it would be less than $50. It's not much because our budget when we went out was just spent and we were committed to our teachers. So the other thing you need to know, and this is a little bit, some of you are old enough to remember when President Bush, they had the Bush math, y'all probably remember that. We have one big budget. So we decided that we were going to pay everybody. So I know everybody said, well, what about the PPP money? What about everybody else? We decided without the PP money early on that all of our hourly employees in preschool and Kids Connect, about 85 of them were going to get paid regardless. So we decided to do that. So that was a huge commitment from the church and the school to make sure that those 85 hourly employees, our folks down there making, $10, $11, $12, $13 an hour. A few of them are probably making a little long. Some of the long-term folks are probably making a little more than that. But we did not want those guys because we didn't know what the government was going to do. Because we're a nonprofit, we don't pay unemployment taxes. So at the time, we didn't know if they were going to qualify for. Well, we knew they weren't not going to. We had to wait on the government to say, hey, under this plan, even nonprofits, qualify for unemployment. So we made the decision early on we were going to pay those 85 employees, and it was the right decision. So know that part of your, you say, hey, well, there's got to be a big chunk of money left. We made a commitment to our employees, and it was the right decision. So, question was asked on one of the Zoom calls I'm on weekly with about 100 heads of schools from all over the country. It was asked last week, and the head of that organization, Dr. Larry Taylor, really good guy, said exactly what I just told you. We do not have the answer for that yet, but we'll get it. Okay. The incubation period is something we are also looking at. So again, the question is right. So if they've been incubated, do we isolate them? Would that work because of siblings and stuff? That's absolutely a question we have to look at. What if a sibling in Kids Connect or a sibling in preschool gets it and their siblings in third grade? Are we going to isolate both classrooms? All that has to be considered, and it's all being considered. It's holy cow, it's whew. It's really mind-boggling. I mean, I don't know any other way to put it. To wrap our hands around all the scenarios that we need to put our hands around right now, it's mind-boggling. It sure is. I was thinking we've looked at co-op options for sure, and we also have looked at some other. I can't. The only way I can tell you is everything is on the table. I mean, there's August 13th is the start date for us, no question about that. But outside of August 13th, we are looking at every scenario that every private and public school in the country is discussing. We are putting it in the hopper, and we're running it through the hopper. That's the best way I can answer the question. And what we will do with that is, as soon as we feel like we have the plans that make sense, we'll have other people. We're going to let other heads of schools review our plans to ask us what we've missed. So one of the questions that came up in the high school Zoom an hour or so ago said, hey, are we going to weave some kind of distance learning just into the regular day? And nobody wants to hear this, but it is a consideration, right? I mean, should we have some kind of and I'm not saying we should. Don't hear me say that. Donald did not say that. But I am saying the question still has to be asked, should we have some kind of continuing online distance learning going on. And so that's a question we have to answer. Yeah, I agree. Kids that are um, immune, their immune systems are compromised. So I understand that totally. Most of y'all know my wife has MS. She takes a monthly infusion called Tysabri. She's been very, very fortunate. She's about 1% of the world that can stand that drug. The side effects are crushing, and one of them is your immune system. So for about 3 or 4 days after she takes that therapy, she basically stays home. So I do understand that concern. I live that life, so I do understand that. Would we do? There's a question here. Would we use the same format? So that's Christine. That's why we're asking the survey. Like, so what formats would you guys want to see if we had to do something like that again? That's a question on here. So here's an example of a scenario that's one of the scenarios that are out there. So let's say we have a situation where there's enough concern that we're not comfortable just bringing everybody in the building. So we might go to something where students come in the building half a day, we clean, the other students come in the building, the other half comes in the other half the day. There may be a scenario where we bring students in all day Monday and Wednesday, the other group Tuesday and Thursday, and Friday we do tutoring, just tutoring, right? So I mean, all those scenarios have to be discussed. I mean, all of those scenarios are things we're thinking about, right? Because we all know that, I mean, ultimately, we performed admirably, but we all know that we have to have something different going forward. We all absolutely understand that. That's all I have for tonight. We will schedule another Zoom call once we have what we think are, other than just we start and it goes well. That's the plan. Start and it goes well. But once we get some of these contingency plans, I asked the two task force. There's two teams working on these plans. I asked those groups to have those plans to me by June 6th. And then church leadership and school leadership will do a quick read of them. We'll have them reviewed by some medical folks as well. We'll have some other professionals look at those as well. And then we will communicate those to everyone. So one last thing, again, for you and your friends or anyone, if COVID has affected their job, and I've said this in heads of school letters, but I really mean this. We do not want people to make a decision that they can't be at Concord because of this disease. If it's anybody, please have them reach out to me and let's see what we can do. We do not want, if they want to be here and we can figure out a way for it to happen, we want them to be here. We do not want this to be a reason they just can't be here. And the church is committed to that. We're on the school side are committed to that. And if there's any way to make it happen, we're going to do our best to make it happen. So please tell folks that, all right? Hey, we appreciate your time tonight. We love your kids. We miss your kids. We're ready to see them back. The building it's eerie around here. It's so quiet. We need some voices back in here for sure. So we're excited to have you guys back, and we'll communicate. Look for my head of school letters. I'll communicate a lot more this summer than I normally do. So look for those. Survey coming out Friday about opening. So look at that for me and get that back. I'd appreciate it. Other than that, thanks guys. Appreciate it.